Paul, and hello everyone. It's brilliant to see so many countries here as usual. Just to introduce myself, I'm Damien Ross. I'm the lead for teacher development and inclusion in our global English for Education systems work. So I work with teachers mostly in national education systems across the world. Actually, this is my last month with the British Council, and this project is one of the ones that I'm really most proud to have been involved in. It's a very small scale project, but it's also very, very close to my heart. So I'm really happy to be introducing this just before I leave. We've been looking for ways to make our work, and especially our online work with teachers, more inclusive and to support a more representative and fairer global ELT sector, which is driven by the teachers that we work with across the world. One of the ways that we think we can do that is by having a stronger focus in our projects on teacher identity and teacher agency. So that's agency within education systems, but also within the communities where we as teachers work, and also, as I mentioned before, within the global ELT sector. Grazia is going to look in a bit more detail, I think, at the concepts of identity and agency. So I won't go into that in too much detail, but really what we're talking about is who we are and what we believe in as teachers, and how we're shaped by the context around us, and then in terms of the agency, what are the barriers and enablers within those contexts to us achieving our goals and aspirations as teachers. We think that this type of project, this is a participatory research project which combines teacher development aims with research aims, is a good way of exploring these issues and addressing these issues, and offering maybe more holistic teacher development opportunities. We also want to provide, through the Teaching English website and the work that Paul and his team do, we want to provide a better platform for teachers and a voice for teachers across the world. And obviously this webinar and the report as well are both ways that we want to do that. So I'm not going to talk any longer. I'm just going to first of all introduce some of the teachers. In the project, we had teachers going from west to east, if I get my geography right, from Brazil, Nigeria, Morocco, Palestine, and Armenia. And here today we have, I don't know if you're able to give a wave each of the speakers as I say this. I don't know if you need to put your camera on or just say hello. We have Antonio in Brazil. We have Joseph in Nigeria. We have Tariq in Morocco, and we have Layla in Palestine, in Gaza in Palestine. I hope I haven't forgotten any of the teachers. We've had a few coming and going there. And not to forget our lead researcher, who I worked with very closely both in designing this, but who then went on to deliver the workshops and write the report, along with another colleague who's not here, Stephen Mander. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Grazia Imperiale, who's a professor of adult education at the School of Education in Glasgow University. So Grazia is going to lead the webinar. Over to you, Grazia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Damien. So nice to see so many people, names and countries here. And thank you very much for attending this webinar today. So I'll start with sharing my screen first. And I hope you can see it. And
yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Right. So let's get started then. So you know why I registered for this program? Because there were no lesson plans, no formal things to do. It was different. And today we are going to talk about this program, which was entitled Exploring Teacher Identity and Agency through the Tree of Life approach. And I'm very happy that today with me, I won't be the only one talking about the project and the program, but there are also the teachers that Damien introduced you who are participants on the project. So just to give you a brief introduction to the project. So the aims were there were 3 aims. The first one was related to teacher development. We wanted to work with teachers in a way that was practice-led. That meant that it could also have an impact on their own teacher development. But at the same time, we had a second aim that for us was to explore teacher identity and agency through a research lens. And finally, we wanted to pilot ways of working for the British Council. As you know, the British Council works, with very large numbers, and we wanted to try to develop a small participatory project and see what the findings and the recommendations that were coming out of this project, and see how this may have an impact on future ways of working for the whole British Council. And the approach that we used, the methodology that we used for our research was a participatory and decolonizing methodology. And we used the Tree of Life approach. And I'm going to talk about this in a moment. But just to give you an idea, we developed some workshops, and then I conducted individual in-depth interviews with the participants. As Damien mentioned, participants were 10 early career English teachers from different countries, from Armenia, Brazil, Morocco, Nigeria, and Palestine. So before going into the project itself, I wanted to mention a couple of things about teacher identity and agency and what we mean by that. So usually when we talk about teacher identity, often we refer to teachers' self-perception of their work, of their professional identity, or what they do within the classroom context, or who they are. And it is about how teachers perceive themselves. But teacher identity is often very much related to the profession. So it is very much related to the professional context. However, in the last 10 years or so, some scholars are starting to use a broader definition of teacher identity. And you can see here an image, a diagram developed by Mockler, who drew some overlapping spheres of different contexts that interact, and they all shape teachers' identity. For example, you can see at the top, there is external political environment, and which interacting with personal experience and professional contexts, and in the overlapping spheres here, we have being a teacher. And this is what we refer to as teacher identity. You see all this, I won't go into detail about explaining the diagrams, but just to give you an idea, all these arrows, they indicate that all the concepts are interconnected, and all the spheres, even though we see them represented here as blocks, as a sphere with a certain limit, still they are interconnected with each other. So it is not that they are like closed boxes. There is an overlapping between the different contexts in which we live, of course.
Hello, my name is Joseph.
When we talk about agency, what do we mean by that? So teacher agency is mainly understood in terms of is understood and used within 2 main fields. The first one is professional development, and the second one has to do with resisting or complying with language policies. So just to give you an example, teacher agency often comes up in terms of teachers acting in a proactive manner to develop themselves throughout their careers. But it has also, and another frequent example of teacher agency is when teachers do resist or comply with language policies. So for example, there are studies that talk about how teachers in certain countries, they do not use English as a medium of instruction, even though English is the language of instruction. They still use some multilingual pedagogies, and they use multilingual approaches. And this is a way in which they can resist the top-down policies that come from the government. So these are often points that are being associated with teacher agency. And the common characteristics of the definition of teacher agency is that, of course, it is related to change. So somehow teacher agency it aims to achieve change. Teachers want to achieve change, some sort of change. And then another common point of all the different definitions that there are about teachers agency is that it is relational. So it does not rely on either the internal capacity, let's say, of the individual, or on the external factors, but it is an interaction between the two. It depends on both what individuals can do and the barriers that prevent them from doing what they can do. So it is an interaction between, let's say, the inside sphere and the outside one. Within the capabilities approach, and this is the definition that we use in our project, agency is defined as the ability to act in accordance with one's chosen goals and values as an element of a person's effective power. And you see that here I highlighted some words. So the first one is the ability to act, to make an action according to one's chosen goals and values. And here goals and values become very important for the application of agency. So what Sen defines as agency is the opportunity. It not necessarily that means that we are going to achieve change, but it is the opportunity that we have to act in accordance with our own goals and values, with the aim of achieving certain change. The tree of life approach, our methodology. So we used, as I mentioned in the introduction, we use a participatory and decolonizing approach. What does it mean? What do we mean by that? So the tree of life approach is an approach that emerged for the first time in Zimbabwe. It was developed by a Zimbabwe psychologist who was working with children who had suffered some sort of trauma. And they were still suffering of post-traumatic stress disorders. And what she did with this group of people was, with this approach, she wanted to see the pupils' strengths and what they are able to do. And rather than on what their loss were about, what their suffering was about, she wanted to focus on the positive things that they could achieve. And so she developed this approach that is called the tree of life. And that's why it is considered decolonizing methodologies, because it comes from, it was born as a different from psychological interventions that we used in the global north, but it was rather developed within the context of the global south, using a way of working that was really contextualized in the practices, in the practice of these psychologists working in Zimbabwe. We use it as a participatory methodology. That means that we worked on the basis that teachers, our participants, were the expert on what we were doing. And we wanted them to be recognized as experts. We wanted to listen to them. And rather than imposing our research agenda, even though we had one, because we had this overarching aim of exploring teacher identity and agency, we also wanted to basically let participants tell us what mattered to them. So instead of saying like, I want you to know about this, this, and that, we were trying to ask participants, what do you want me to know about you? So the questions that we used were very, very broad. And we worked through a series of workshops. During the first workshop, we looked at the roots of the trunk, or the metaphorical representation of the tree. We looked at the roots. And then in the second workshop, we looked at the present, at the strengths of the teachers. And in the third one, we looked at the dreams and the hopes for the future. And you can see here the metaphor of the tree, how it works well with this, because we have the roots, which represents the past, the trunk, where how do we build up our future, and then the leaves and the blossom that represents the hopes and the dreams for our future. So what we came up was a collective tree of life. Usually with the tree of life approach, individuals, because it was born out of narrative therapy, usually individuals that developed their own tree of life approach. But for us, we readapted it slightly because because of the topic of exploring a shared sense of teacher identity. So we put together things that teachers said, as you saw in the previous slide. They added post-it notes, individual post-it notes, and then we created our collective tree of life. And now we are going to have a look, to zoom into the trees and to have a look at the different parts of the trees. So the first one, we start with the past, our roots. As you can see here, the words that are reported here are the exact words that teachers, the participants during our workshops used. And they are the words that they wrote on the tree. They cover different aspects. For example, someone talked about parents and families, the importance of family in shaping our own trajectories. Someone talked about simplicity and happiness as related to the values on which we base, on which we develop ourselves. And others talked about summer camps, Peace Corps, or their first interactions with English. And I would like now to call Antonio Adilson, who was one of the participants on the project, if you want to expand a little bit more on our roots of the tree.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Antonio and I'm from Brazil. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the roots, okay? So I could say that the way we understand the world is directly linked to our culture, traditions, as you know, different religions, habits, and tastes in this way. And we can understand that our roots are reflecting the way we teach as English teachers, right? So in particular, in my case, and I didn't know that, but when I was just 6 or 5, maybe, I almost knew I'd like to become an English teacher. And the first time I heard someone saying something, my first English teacher at school, and she said something like orange or red or blue. And I asked her and I thought, oh my God, why different words? Why not Portuguese? And I realized, oh my God, there are some language different than mine, than Portuguese here in Brazil. So maybe that was the first time, that was the beginning of my graduation to become an English teacher in the future. And I was really interested in learning this language. And when I was maybe 10 or 12, and I realized that English is very important, how English was important that time. So, but I was a poor child, and I didn't have enough money to to study English in an English course, or I didn't have computer or internet. But I still try to, I put this in my head, in my mind, and I said to me, maybe in the future I have to learn it. I have to speak English, understand to understand the world, as we know, and to talk to the world. And when I was maybe 16 or 17, with the support of my family, my friends, my English teacher at school, and I decided, no, I have to become an English teacher, because this is not just about being an English teacher, it's about love. That's what I love. And I remembered when I was just 5 or 6, as I said, oh my God, I like it. I have to do it, I have to learn it. So that's why when I was 16, 17, I really decided to go to the university. When I was finished high school, I was maybe 15 or 16. And my first option to work for was become an English teacher. And maybe some friends I had, for example, said something like, but why teacher in Brazil? Not exactly English teacher, but in Brazil, teachers, maybe if you are a teacher, you are not, you don't have a good profession. I think you can understand what I mean. So maybe because teachers don't make a lot of money, for example, but I don't care. In that time, I said something to my friends like, I don't care about the money or about the what people will say. I just want to do something I love, and that's what I like. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So being an English teacher nowadays, when I remember all the support I had, with, as I said, my family, friends, and all the love that I built during this year to become this English teacher as I am nowadays, and I feel really realized. I feel really glad, for example, what I became. So maybe, as I said, some at the beginning, become an English teacher for me was not just about a profession or an activity to make money. That is about love.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for your contribution. Thanks for the powerful example of taking us, all of us, back to your childhood, and then when you were a teenager and until now. And thank you very much. We'll now move to the trunk of the tree. And so we are now building up. So we focused was our strengths and capabilities, as we call them. And as you can see here, there are some words that refer to the profession, like some, teaching skills, like being innovative, well prepared in class, and as strengths identified by the teachers. But there were also others skills, or I prefer to use the word capabilities, that were broader than that. Like, for example, being curious or being a creative person, being open-minded. These are not necessarily characteristics of English language teachers, but it can be a characteristic of anybody. They are characteristics of human beings. And I would invite now Joseph Nuhu to tell us a bit more about his teaching practice.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Joseph.
Yeah, my name is Joseph Nuhu from Nigeria, and I'm glad to be here. Big thanks to Grazia and Damien and the British Council for the opportunities that you give us to grow. Thank you. Well, from my context, it has been experiential and demanding as an early English language teacher. I remember I've had to put up with resilience, multilingual approaches, creativity, and adaptability, in order to thrive as an early language teacher I also had to put up with inclusion in my classroom, open-mindedness, and all these other skills which I might not be able to enumerate. I remember I once had a pupil in my class. He's actually a Nigerian from Norway. Okay, he had grown up there, but somehow he got to return. And when he did, because he had issues with, um, understanding the English language clearly, I had to sort of adapt my class and just make it free and easy for him to communicate in Norwegian sometimes, and then we're able to find a way to interpret. I remember a day we had a lesson with him, and then he said to me, is it possible to allow him speak to us in Norwegian and express himself? I said, fine, if that will suit you. I mean, so I sort of practiced inclusion there. I allowed him speak to the classroom. You know, he demonstrated, he used his hands, he had drawings on the board, he had sketches, you know, all just to pass across a point. What am I saying? The early language teaching experience I've had over the years is that of open-mindedness, adaptability, and creativity, and it has helped me a lot. I'd like to add that, you see, teaching is a calling, and only the called would really make a positive and lasting impact in the learners. I think for now, I'll just hold it here. Perhaps I might talk more later.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Thanks. And thanks for sharing your example of how you use the multilingual approach with Norwegian. That is not a language that most of people speak in Nigeria, I think. Still allowing the space of your classroom to be inclusive in such a way, or to include also another language and another human being that for sure he would have felt appreciated and valued by you. And we have another contribution from another teacher, Joy Olokbo, who unfortunately isn't here today, but she sent a video. And Paul, can we maybe play the video by Joy, please? Here she is.
Hi, my name is Joy Olokbo. I am a Nigerian. I am teaching in a primary school in Niger State, Shiroro local government. It's a rural community, and I love what I do. I love to teach. I have this passion for it. I have received commendations from my bosses saying I am passionate about what I do. I go all out to reach my learners, to ensure that my class lessons are taken seriously. I always try to
Hi, Grazia. For some reason, I'm not quite sure what it's offering a little bit. Hang on, let me try and move it back.
Let's see if it loads.
always try to.
No?
I'm not quite sure why it's not running. It should be.
To interact in the classroom using personal experiences. Like, for instance, the other day, I was trying to pass across the lesson of not allowing other children to bully in the classroom, and I had to share this story of myself being bullied in the university, my first year in the university, where I had roommates that were way older than me, and for one reason or the other, they just felt I was not supposed to be in the room with them. And they did everything in their power to get me out of the room, but I survived that 1 year. So that story, just you see children would light up, their faces are just excited, listening to you, sharing, knowing that, oh, somebody out there also feels what they feel. Somebody understands their level of reasoning and all of that. And I am thankful to British Council for this wonderful experience. I am grateful to the researchers, Grazia and Damien. I have learned a lot through this process. Precisely one of those things I am working on seriously in my interactions in the classroom is in different methods of getting across to children, different ways of reaching to them to ensure that learning has taken place. And I look forward to opening my own school precisely because of the fact that I feel this need to reach out to more children, especially in the rural communities where a lot of children are out of school due to financial reasons, due to conflicts, due to banditry, due to kidnappings, and all of that we are facing in this part of the country. So my intention is to get more children out of the streets and in school. And I am grateful that I met British Council, and I hope that this journey we have started will take a long, long while before it ends. Thank you, Gracia. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for all you do. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. It worked very well, and it is always a powerful testimony that Joyce brings to this group. Not only she talked about her strength, as sharing her own personal stories and making herself vulnerable in front of her learners, sharing her stories of being bullied, but she also, when talking about her strength, she also inevitably talked about her future, what is that? What is her source of her motivation? That is to open a new school. And so here we reach the leaves and the blossom of the trees. So our hopes and our dreams. And again, here you can see a variety of hopes and dreams that the teachers identified. Some are related to their own profession, getting an MSc, continue our trainings and so on. Others are broader than that. There are dreams for all, like literacy for all, or to see our students flourishing, to protect our students, to live peacefully, and so on. And I would like to call Laila Saleh to tell us about her hopes and dreams.
Okay, hello everyone, this is Laila Saleh. I am from Gaza, a Palestinian English language teacher. I've been teaching English since 2017. Actually, I'm so glad to be one of you today. Actually, no doubt that our past experiences and our present will absolutely affect our hopes and dreams in the future. And according to the tree of life, the blossoms and leaves depict our wishes, dreams, aspiration, and hopes for the future. Now, all of you know that everyone has his or her own hopes, but today I'm going to talk about my own hope and aspirations. Actually, in general, I wish to have professional development, and I seek for professional development in my career. Also, I can do this maybe by doing lots of workshops and courses, and also to have opportunities to represent the Palestinian cause and the local and in the international world as well. Also, we have a change, and a change I'm talking about, a change in all aspects. I mean, it changed ourselves, it changed the curriculum, it changed the methods of teaching, it changed even the way we deal with our students. All these things will affect our students and our way of teaching in a good way as well. Also, I think that one of my dreams is to be an iconic character, because I am, you know, teachers are model for their students, and what about being model for all the people all around the world? So being an iconic and historical character actually is one of my wishes. And to be more specific, because I am a Palestinian teacher, I still live in Gaza Strip, and you know, we still occupied by Israel. So our dreams and wishes is a little bit different from other teachers around the world. And one of these wishes, it's very simple actually, and most of teachers around the world have these things, but it's a wish for me because actually we are deprived from these things, and they are our human right. And even I mean, my children or my students, I wish if they have their own children rights, the right to be the right to protection, the right to be free without any slavery or occupation, the right to live and to life, at least the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of a free state. And actually, I wish that all these dreams won't be true until we are out of the occupation. So to be honest, I remember something happened with me during the last aggressive war against Gaza. One of my students called me and asked me to pray for her and her family because she lost one of her family. Actually, I was so sad, and I was disappointed, and at the same time, look that I myself can't, I couldn't even protect myself or protect my kids. So the right to protection is something that we, like all Palestinians and me as a representative of all Palestinian teacher, is one of our dreams. And I wish that one day Palestine is going to be free because the land is ours.
Thank you. Thank you, Laila. Thanks. So sorry for interrupting you. I'm keeping an eye on the time. But I'm so glad that you talked about protection, because often schools and classrooms are really the spaces where people can feel protected if this is done in the right, if teaching is done in the right way. And especially in the context of Palestine, where schools are, you know, not just the classroom is a safe environment, should be a safe environment, but schools sometimes are really considered a safe place where, you know, bombings shouldn't hit schools. So thank you very much, Laila, for this moving, very moving contribution. And I read, if you have time, go and read in the chat, because there were people saying, we hope that your dreams will be true and so on. You will all find the comments in the chat. Now, after having explored the collective tree of life, then we analyze the findings of our research. So what does it all tell us? What can we take away from all of this? Why is it important? And we categorize the findings in 4 main themes. The first related to education for social change, second one about teacher collaboration and motivation. The third one is about the need that we have to work both within, but also outside of the system to make things change. And the fourth one is that, of course, identity is not fixed. We are not just an English teacher. At some point in our life, we may become mothers, and we are daughters, and we are friends, and we are a model friend for our students, and so on. So our identity always shifts. And I would invite now Tarek Benani from Morocco to expand a little bit on these findings.
Thank you, Grazia. So, hello everyone. My name is Tarek, and I'm a teacher from Morocco. First of all, I would like to express massive thanks to both Grazia and Damien for helping us throughout the entire project, and for also giving us the opportunity to be among all of you today. Now, relating to what Grazia has mentioned and in brief, personally, I believe that our identity as teachers is always shaped by this context that is surrounding us. That is, one's intellectual or professional development, either outside or inside of the classroom environment, affects in more than one way teachers' performance. And I think that identity in this manner is always shaped by means of this transformative process, as Grazia mentioned. So the energy that one invests in developing his or her skills and intellectual faculties shapes this identity unconsciously. Hence, the results become apparent within the classroom environment. And talking from personal experience, I came to the realization that devoting at least 1 hour per day to improve my level has really helped me throughout my teaching experience. Another thing that I would also like to highlight is that within their first years in this profession, the teachers most of the time lose interest and stop becoming teachers. So they just preach English instead of the actual act of teaching it in class. And this is what happens in most case scenarios, since the will to even be productive or innovative in class is not even there anymore. What I mean by this is that some teachers can maintain the same level of energy and motivation that they started with in the first place, since they consumed, I think, all of it in a short period of time. And I remember one of my fellow teachers advised me to try to divide and separate the amount of energy that I tend to work with. I think because he said, this job does not require me for just 1 year or two, but 30 years and even more. He said, and I quote, if you spend all of your energy in your first year, you'll spend the rest of your work years yearning for energy, which you have already lost. Finally, I would like to express again massive thanks to Grazia, Damien, and the British Council for giving us this opportunity. Why? Because it was an opportunity for us to inspire and at the same time be inspired. And I think that's the whole purpose of such experiences and projects. Thank you so much for listening and being here today for us.
Thank you, Tarek. Thank you very much. I always find it powerful when you talk about your fellow teachers who told you to save energy. Do not use it all in the first year of your teaching, but keep it for the future as well. Keep some for the future as well. So I found it very useful advice also for me, for myself. So, of course, you can read more about the findings and the analysis of the findings and of the Tree of Life in our report. Today, for us, it was important that you heard the voices of the teachers themselves, who were the ones that actually, shared their stories and life stories with us. But you can read more about how we analyze the findings in our report. And now we come to our recommendations. So we identified 3 main recommendations. The first one was about the approach. We found that using participatory approaches to co-construct research agendas with teachers, but also to co-construct knowledge with teachers is very important for the whole ELT sector. We found that sometimes the ELT sector still undervalue teachers' expertise, and we are saying in our report, please do value teacher expertise a bit more. And one way of doing this is actually co-constructing the research agenda together with them. So establishing stronger links between researchers and teachers by being equal partners on projects. The second recommendation that we have is about the inclusion of teacher identity in teacher development. We found that teacher identity is still foregrounded somehow in most of professional development programs. And we argued that teacher identity, and with identity, we mean identity in the broadest sense, should be part of teacher development, because who we are has a direct impact on what we do in our classrooms. And finally, our third recommendation is about building sustainable digital communities, sustainable international communities, of course, digitally. With sustainable, we mean they are long-lasting. As you heard from Joy's video, she was hoping that this collaboration would last a long way. And we feel that these types of projects, which are built on rapport and on relationships, should really find ways to being sustainable, to be long-lasting, and to have long-term impact in the different contexts in which people live and for the individuals who are involved. Then we also identified other recommendations that are more the logistics of running such projects. So I won't go into detail now, but they are in our report. There were considerations about the project team, like on gender, about how to recruit, how to get started, how to set up a project like this, about how to include and to ensure inclusion within remote delivery. And what do we do about incentives and paying people to be part of such projects? Shall we pay them or shall we not? So there are these are the points that we touched upon in our recommendation, but as I said, I won't really delve into that just now. So to conclude our webinar today, we argue that teacher identity should include not only what we do within our classrooms, but who we are, our roots, our values, our hopes, and our aspirations. And we should find time and space for these issues to be brought up during teacher development programs. And I think that what we are arguing now is even bigger than that. Perhaps we are thinking about a paradigmatic shift in teacher development. It's a complete shift from how teacher development was conceptualized to how we would like it to be. So I strongly feel about this. And I think that we should move from the idea of success, the idea of the successful teacher, to the idea of hope and the idea of the hopeful teacher. We should move from teaching skills and strictly related to how to teach a lesson within the 45 minutes of a period of a classroom to teacher capabilities as who we are, what are we able to be and to do. And finally, it is about, we often think about what do teachers do or what they don't do. What, we feel that teachers need to be evaluated based on their performance, but instead I would argue that there should be a focus on what opportunities they have to do what they do. So it is not only about what we want to do and what we want to be, but what barriers prevent us to do that. What institutional barriers, what contextual barriers may prevent us, and how do we tackle them? So I think that's it from us. And thank you very much. Stop sharing my screen.
Thanks very much, Grazia, and thanks everyone for your contributions. It was great, really engaging, and yeah, fantastic. Really enjoyed it, and lots of people in the comments as well. It looks like I've enjoyed it a lot as well and got a lot from it. So brilliant, thank you. Just gonna look at questions. We've got about 8 minutes or so for questions. So let's have a look. I think you can see them as well, but just let me see. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. If there are any that jump out at you, then obviously please do jump in. But otherwise, okay, interesting. Quite a few questions from Mercedes. Could you please enlarge on preaching English instead of teaching it?
That's a lovely phrase about preaching English instead of teaching English. So it was Tarek who came up with that during the first workshop that we were doing. And he was just spontaneously saying like, yeah, no, you know, we just end up preaching English instead of teaching it. And it was like, whoa, well, you are telling us a very powerful thing. Like, go on, elaborate, tell us more about that. Tarek, would you like to add anything?
Well, I really knew that this statement will cause me trouble from day one. I think when we talk about preaching English instead of teaching it, is that some teachers, because they lost this energy to even be present in the class, they just come there and just deliver lessons without having this energy, without having this motivation that will be transformed throughout the lesson. And so sometimes they just focus on, you know, having students write this lesson. It doesn't matter if students really understood this. It doesn't really matter if the students enjoyed this lesson. And so what matters most is just sending this message without depending on how to send it or how to transfer it to students. I hope I explained the lesson in detail.
Thanks, Tarek. And if I may add something there, like with my research eyes, I think when I heard this, for me, it was about the value of education, right? It's not just, it's what we believe education can do. One thing is we can memorize facts, we can learn a lot, and we can, you know, become more knowledgeable. But what education can do is also to teach us to be attentive to, you know, if we think about an education for hope or for social change, I think this is the kind of education in which we believe. And with preaching instead of teaching, I think that I can also see these two differences. And this relates to really what education means to us. Like what is what are the powerful things that we can do with education?
Someone's just asked about the takeaways from this webinar. Well, one of the big takeaways I just put into the chat, which is the publication, Exploring Teacher Agency and Identity through the Tree of Life approach. And there's, so that publication is available to download for free and read. Like I said earlier, if you're on a mobile device, you won't be able to click on that, but you will get a link to that in the thank you email tomorrow. So that would be one takeaway. That would be the biggest takeaway, I think, from the webinar. I don't know if anyone wants to add any other takeaways, but that would seem to be the biggest one, the main one. Yeah.
I think it's also very personal. You know, you can't relate to the stories that teachers came up with. You can relate to maybe something matters to you, some other things do not matter to you. And we are not saying that all teacher development should include everything, you know, but there should be the opportunity for you to relate to certain aspects of, so in this webinar, you might relate to something, you may not relate to other things, and that's totally fine.
Okay. There's a question from Zara. It's in the chat, actually, not in the Q&A. But can you specify any difference between teacher autonomy and teacher agency, and which one includes another one?
Oh, interesting concept. I think I would say that teacher agency is the umbrella, right? So, and I would say that teacher autonomy is within that, but agency, as we mean it, is about the opportunity to change. And then teacher autonomy perhaps sits there as it is. I would say that it does not encompass all the things that teacher agency may include. So yeah, I think that would be my take on it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's another one I saw. Yeah, evaluating. Someone's put a question about evaluating teacher agency, and whether, well, how can we do that, and whether, I mean, for me, it would seem like it's a sort of a self-evaluation kind of thing than a managerial. I don't know if you agree with that, or whether you think there is some way it can be assessed or evaluated some way.
I would say, rather than use the word evaluating, perhaps I would think about reflecting, using reflections and post-reflection, like reflection on actions, to self-evaluate, like, yeah, indeed, to self-evaluate. But perhaps through reflections, we can also evaluate. As we said, the teacher agency is also related to the opportunities that we have to change things. So it is that does not depend on us, but also depends on the institution, on the school in which we work. I would say that through reflection, we can evaluate both ourselves, but also the opportunities that we have in place. And then, you can take action then on this, like reflecting on action on what has been done, but also reflecting for like to develop further action, to go to the institution and say, like, we think we need this change. I think this would be something to think about, just not to do some self-evaluation, but also to consider the broader context, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems to be something that's sort of you want to work collaboratively on as an institution, perhaps more than it being something which is assessed. But I don't know. Okay, I'm just aware of time. Actually, I don't know if there are any other questions in the Q&A that you want to pick up on particularly.
There was. Can I pick up on one only for one more minute, and then
of course. Yeah, of course.
It is something that is very close. Is it worth? So Pierre asked, is it worth to focus on local languages to build a solid English learning? I would say yes. Yes, it is absolutely worth to work with indigenous languages, with native tongues, with all, because these are part of who we are. We often think, when we think about communicative English language teaching, we think that we're never good enough in English and we need to reach a certain competence in English. But I would say that it is part of who we are this multilingual repertoire. And this should be part of our learning, of our education, even within the English classrooms. And indeed, multilingual approaches can contribute to develop even competency in a foreign language, but especially developing our own selves. So yes.
Great.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine, no problem at all. I'm sorry that we have to end there. But we do, unfortunately, those of you watching today have put links into the chat. Those links will be available tomorrow in the thank you email. When the webinar ends, it should be that the survey will automatically open up. So please do fill in the feedback survey. It's great to get your thoughts and your opinions on the webinar, ideas for future webinars. But for now, I just want to say thank you ever so much to Grazia, to Leila, to Antonio, to Tariq. A few others who've left, or no, they're still there. Is Joseph still here? No. And Damien as well, obviously for all the work on the project. And yeah, really, really enjoyable. So thank you ever so much, all of you, and thanks everyone for attending. This is our last webinar of this year. We'll be back on the 13th of January, where we will be running a webinar with Claire Steele and Sarah Smith, and that'll be looking at challenge and cognition and increasing the level of challenge in teenage classes. So that's available to register for if you want to join us. But that's pretty much it from us. If you're taking holidays for whatever reason, then please do enjoy them and have a good break. Grazia, Antonio, Leila, Tariq, and Joseph, who's not here. Thank you ever so much, and we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Damien, sorry. Do you want to add? Sorry, Damien, do you want to add any final words?
No. Just saying goodbye. It's fine.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.